There we go. Okay. Why does it say, oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, geez Louise. All right.
Okay, you are live, Chair Lopez Lucy.
Thank you. The April Parks and Community Service Commission will come to order. And our first, I think that we have our secretary that needs to give us some questions before we begin.
Yes, thank you. The procedures adopted for this meeting meet or exceed the standards set forth in Governor Gavin Newsom's Order N-29-20, which allows public meetings like this one to be held by teleconference to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. At this time, it would be appropriate to conduct roll call and afterward to confirm certain matters for the record. Commissioner Dorlick,
Present.
Commissioner Keniston Lee,
Here.
Commissioner Birnbaum,
Present.
Commissioner Ellicott Pesek,
Present.
Commissioner Roberts,
Present.
Student Commissioner Ramesh,
Present.
Vice Chair Oslin,
Present.
Chair Lopez Lucy.
Present.
Thank you. I would like to verify that all members of the committee can hear me well. All members of the committee have been able to hear all previous speakers, including the roll call. And each committee member believes, based on facial or voice recognition or otherwise, that all persons representing themselves to be a committee member are in fact committee members. If all three statements are true, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. And finally, as a reminder, any votes taken during this meeting must be taken by roll call. Thank you.
Thank you. And Madam Secretary, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Number 4 on our agenda this evening is special items and announcement. And I believe we're going to start with our temporary employee of the month. And that is presented by Rihanna Rick Thomas. There you are.
Good evening, commissioners and members of the public. My name is Rhiannon Thomas. I am the Recreation Coordinator for Youth Sports. This evening, the City of San Ramon Parks and Community Services Department would like to congratulate Justin Katzen for being chosen as the March Temporary Employee of the Month. Justin began working with the department in the summer of 2017 as a Recreation Leader 1 with the youth sports programs while he attended California High School. He's a recent graduate of Cal Poly, where he majored in psychology. Currently, Justin is a lead at our K through 12th grade employee child daycare program at the San Ramon Community Center. Justin's extremely easy to work with. He takes ownership of any task that he's given and is a mentor to his fellow staff. Aside from being a great member of our childcare team, Justin is being recognized tonight for his flexibility and his willingness to help our camps team by playing the vital role of Sam the Crow in our summer camp promotional videos. Justin volunteered to assist us by dressing up in the heavy and at times cumbersome costume. He did an amazing job in front of the camera, as well as jumping behind the camera to capture staff and some photos during the hour-long session. Great job, Justin.
Well, thank you, Justin, for all everything that you do. Being Sam the Crow, that's a really good, fun thing to do. I'm sure probably a little hot, probably behind that. And the teaching, and being with the students and all. So I thank you for your being able to adjust to different things. So we really congratulate you and thank you that you're one of our members in the city of San Ramon. So if you would like to say something, please feel free to.
Thank you so much. It's truly an honor for this award and for this recognition. It's I love giving back to the community, especially since I grew up in the city in San Ramon, and I currently still live in the city of San Ramon. And every day I come to work, I just want to give those kids the best experience they have during these weird and unprecedented times. So thank you so much again, and take care and be safe. Thank you again.
Thank you. All right, do we have any special announcements?
Why, yes, we do. I've always got a few things I want to give you updates on. So I do want to make sure that everyone's got it on their calendar. We are planning to have a special joint meeting with the City Council at 6 p.m. on April 28th, and that'll be regarding the BR6 Summer Hill Homes project. So if it's possible for you to attend, please do. I'd also happy to let you know that, as you know, we had been talking all about the tennis court reservation policies a couple months ago, and they went into effect at Central Park and Rancho San Ramon Park on April 1st. And to date, we've had 15 reservations made. So we're excited about that. And of course, we'll be coming back to you probably in about 6 months to report back on how that all went. But as our first month out, people are already taking advantage. And also, as you know, the COVID tiers have been changing, and it's exciting as we move through the tiers and start to go back to more normal operations. They've provided lots of opportunities for staff to increase programming, and they are adapting as quickly as possible and switching as each of the tiers come about. But just to keep you apprised, facility rentals, which had been very minimal with only religious ceremonies at very limited capacities following guidelines, are going to be increasing, and we're going to be able to allow rentals now, again, with the guidelines and limited capacities, but that's starting on May 1st. So we'll have actual parties and things and gatherings for people. The city-sponsored adult softball leagues have begun play, and all the allowable indoor youth sports have resumed in our gyms. And you probably have noticed, if you've been out in the parks, lots of people running sports fields as gameplay for youth in most sports has resumed. So you just feel the community waking up. A few dates for you just to keep on your radar. The Parks Make Life Better Cleanup Day at Forest Home Farms. This is in conjunction with our Arbor Day, is this Saturday, the 17th. That's kicking off at 9 o'clock. So they'll be cleaning up Forest Home Farms and planting a tree for Arbor Day. The Senior Foundation's parking lot bingo is scheduled for April 22nd. This is their first fundraiser they've done during the pandemic. Pre-registration is required for that, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you have any inkling to play bingo from the parking lot, April 22nd. And then finally, I think you're aware, but the library will be opening for their grab and go services. Again, limited with what you can do, but that begins on Monday, April 26th at the San Ramon Main Library, and Tuesday, April 27th at the Doherty Station Library. So lots of things opening, lots of opportunities happening as we come kind of through the pandemic, and hopefully get out the other side by June 15th and get to be fully out of the tier system. That's it for now.
Thank you, Kathy. Well, public comment. At this time, those in the audience are encouraged to address the Park and Community Service Commission on any item not already included in tonight's agenda. Members of the public who are participating via Zoom will have the opportunity to make comments to the Parks and Community Service Commission live through Zoom application. Comments should not exceed 3 minutes. Comments from the public under public comment may also be submitted by email to ctoman@sanramon.ca.gov. No commission action can be taken at this meeting on issues raised during public comment, whether submitted by email or Zoom. Written public comment emails must be submitted to the Parks and Community Service Department prior to the commencement of the reading of the public comment emails into the record by the recording secretary, and will be limited in duration to 3 minutes each. Madam Secretary, do we have any public wanting to speak?
Yes, we have 15 in attendance, and it looks like we do have one person to speak named Cassandra, so I will be bringing her in.
Thank you.
Cassandra, you should be able to speak now.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hello, my name is Cassandra, and I'm a longtime resident of San Ramon and a nursing student in Cal State East Bay, currently studying public health. One of our assignments this semester was to do a windshield survey of the community that we live in order to deepen our familiarity with it. During my search, I found one area that I believe San Ramon should improve on, and that is increasing transportation available to seniors and those with disabilities outside of county connections. On the website for the city of San Ramon, I could only find one option offered by the city for seniors, which is composed of only 2 vans with a combined passenger capacity of 23 seats. I did not see anywhere specifically that showed any special transportation options provided by the city for those who are disabled. I think this is a severely low number for the size of the community of San Ramon, and the lack of access to these individuals provides a health equity issue as it does not adequately meet the needs of the community members of San Ramon who are often largely marginalized in society. I think this is especially important considering San Ramon's plan for the future City Walk, which would likely increase traffic congestion and population size. If we also consider the issues that we are faced with today concerning the pandemic and the required limiting of capacity, how helpful are 2 vans comprised of 23 seats with a decreased capacity for a city as large as San Ramon? Not very helpful at all. Additionally, I think it is vital that we as a community make sure that we are providing access to such things as transportation options to those who may need it most, and this is especially true for the disabled and seniors. Therefore, I ask the Parks and Community Services Commission of San Ramon to work to increase transportation options for seniors and those with disabilities in order to help increase the health and well-being of all of the community members of San Ramon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have any other speakers?
No, we do not have any other. Wait a minute, we do now. One moment, it will be Colette Park.
And also, Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
I would request that Cassandra, since we don't have her contact information, reach out to us via email so that we might connect her with some of the resources to answer some of her questions.
All right. Hopefully that she's still on here. Cassandra, are you still in the audience?
Colette, you're ready to talk.
Yes.
And
I just wanted to say hello and tell you that I'm the representative from the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee for the Parks and Recs. And that's all I really wanted to let you know, is that I am attending your meetings and getting back to our committee with them.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And hopefully then that was a good representation, and hopefully that Cassandra will reach out to us and get the information so we can get it back to the seniors.
She is still on as an attendee.
Okay, and if we would just ask you, Cassandra, to reach out and contact Kathy with your phone number and email so that we can reach you. So thank you. Okay, so we will move forward if we have no further speakers. Okay.
Heidi, did you need your hand up?
I didn't see any.
No, I jumped the gun. It's for when we discuss the minutes from the last meeting. Sorry.
Okay. That's the next on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of March 10th. And if anyone has a motion or a correction, please so now state. And Heidi, did you have something then?
I will move to accept with notification to the chair that during your request for discussion, I have a comment to make.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Will, did you raise your hand? For seconding, you're muted.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All right, and discussion?
Yes, Chair Lopez Lucy, I don't think this, obviously I made a motion to accept, so I don't think this changes the wording of my motion, but item 8.2, the Art and Wind Festival, we did move to cancel and move forward with a virtual event, but I do recall significant discussion about, at least on my part, about making sure it's more of a souped up virtual event. I don't know that we need to change the motion to reflect that, but I just want to take this opportunity to remind staff that where we have that opportunity from a budget and programming perspective, I wanted to make sure that message got through. That was all. But my motion still stands.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, corrections? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand.
And we're going to take a roll call. if that's
Just to
okay.
raise the roll call. That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so Commissioner Dorlick,
I think he's struggling with his audio.
how about a thumbs up if it's a yes? Okay. Commissioner Keniston Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Birnbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellicott Pettit,
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts,
Aye.
Vice Chair Osland,
Aye.
and Chair Lopez.
Aye. Thank you. So the minutes are approved. And we do not have any consent items. And so we will move on to number 8, commission business. An update on the draft 5-year capital improvement program for 2021 through 2026. And that will be presented by Jennifer Patchen, our senior administrative analyst. Jennifer.
Good evening. So first step is taking myself off of mute. Now let me see if I can share my screen. Give me just a second here. Okay. Can you all see that? Is it coming up?
Yes.
Okay. Let's get it. Okay.
We are still seeing the version that's got all the different little images.
Let me stop share and then start back up again. How about now?
Got it. Good job.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening, commissioners, staff, and members of the viewing audience. My name is Jennifer Patchen. I'm the Senior Administrative Analyst for the Public Services Division. And I come here once a year to give you guys an update on the capital improvement program, the development of the budget, and the projects that are in the queue for the coming year, and the snapshot of the full 5-year CIP. Okay, there we go. Make sure it's working. So we're going to give you a review of our development strategies, how we get to this point in developing the budget, a review of the funding sources that go into the projects, and an update on the specific CIP projects for fiscal year 21-22. We'll give those in detail. Each of them will get a slide, and then more of a snapshot of the 5-year CIP, which is 21 through fiscal year 25-26. So in February of each year, we complete the updating of the 2 maintenance plans. We have the parks maintenance plan and the facilities maintenance renovation plan. We look at all of the assets that are due for repair or replacement or are reaching the end of their useful life. And that plan gives us the year that they are ready to move forward. And staff looks at those, does a review in the field on what actually needs to be moved forward, and we bring the plan forward in terms of looking at the budget availability. And so, sorry. Okay, there we go. So the proposed fiscal year 21-22 capital budget is $2.3 million. Approximately 1.66 of that is from the infrastructure maintenance fund, so funding our facilities projects, and another $648,000 of that from the park development fund. Approximately $9.7 million for the total 5-year CIP from both of those funds. So each year we give a brief update on the priorities, priority 1, 2, 3, and how the projects fall into a priority. So a priority 1 type of project would be something that is needed for repair of a safety issue or a hazard, something that needs to be done to comply with a regulatory standard, or something that supports the master plan and general plan goals. So examples of this might be ADA upgrades at playgrounds to make sure that they're meeting those standards, and playground repairs and replacement of any kind of asset that might be broken, such as a broken bench or picnic table. A priority 2 project would be a project that would reduce an ongoing repair, such as replacing an appliance versus repairing it over and over again. It might also increase the functionality or enhance the recreational experience, or it might address sustainability. So an energy measure or water conservation, a good example of this is our installation of booster pumps that helps with water conservation. And then a priority number 3 project would be something that we're replacing because the plan tells us that it's time to replace it and we want to replace it before it breaks. Again, a good example of this would be park assets such as benches, barbecues, things that we don't want to fail and have to fix them on the fly. We want to replace those before they break. Same would go along with things like pumps for fountains. We definitely want to have a planned replacement for those so that we're replacing them so that they don't break and cause more of an issue for patrons. It also could be a priority 3 could also be something that is an expenditure offset, which would bring in revenue, such as a upgrade of like dance floor studios or kitchen renovations that might actually result in better rentals of facilities. So that would fall under that. And then something that might be aesthetics would be considered a priority number 3 project. So just a brief overview of the infrastructure maintenance fund. So this is the fund that typically funds all of our assets in the facilities. So the previous strategy for several years, for over 10 years, was for the general fund to contribute $200,000 each year to what used to be called the building maintenance fund, if we remember it called as that. And it was really only to partially fund needs. So each year when we did the updates to the renovation plan for facilities, we were really only able to bring forward priority 1 projects, sometimes not even fully priority 1 projects. So it was kind of like a what I would call a Band-Aid fix for several years. So we were bringing them forward as prioritized 1, 2, 3, but often we had to defer projects down the line to year 5, 6, and it just started stacking up. So in fiscal year 16-17, as we were realizing this, that the situation was, we had aging facilities, things that needed to be addressed, we took a look with council at an analysis of all unfunded needs, and we actually looked at an entire 10-year snapshot of a reviewing of a shortfall of what we actually need to bring the facilities to the condition that they needed to be. So at that point, the decision was to allocate annual funding of $1.5 million from the general fund going forward. So in that first year, it was actually as a mid-year request, they did a $1.5 million, what they called seed money to kind of get that fund going and get projects going that had been deferred for several years. And then in fiscal year 17-18, we did another 1.5 contribution as was per the plan, but we also got an additional $2 million, which they called super funding. So that year we got a total of $3.5 million. And the idea being that each year we would continue to get $1.5 million per year from the general fund. In 18-19, however, the contribution was reduced to $435,000 to meet some budget constraints that year. But in 19-20, we did get the full 1.5 million. And then I'll go into this a little bit further. There's a slide, but in 2021, we actually didn't take any contribution from the general fund because of the COP funding that we received. So that is kind of the previous strategy on the infrastructure maintenance fund. So current strategy, instead of, with that analysis of looking at fully funded needs for the buildings, we also kind of changed the strategy. We weren't just looking at replacing fixtures in various sites each year. We were looking at what would it take to fully fund a renovation of an entire building. It really becomes more efficient to essentially shut down that building one time. It affects the patrons one time. We get everything done. And then we, in theory, don't have to look at touching that facility for quite some time. So in looking at that strategy in fiscal year 19-20, we funded the Al Costa Senior Community Center, which has since been completed. And we also funded the San Ramon Community Center, phase 1 of which has been completed, which is the interior of the building, which I'm sure you've all noticed. It's amazing. It turned out great. Phase 2 of that project, we still have available funding for. There's balance in there to tackle some of the exterior issues of the building. Mainly, I think we're looking at the terrace patio and some sort of shade structure and kind of upgrading that whole area back there. The two buildings that were identified for this fiscal year, 2021, were the Doherty Station Community Center and Library. Only $500,000 was brought forward this year, and that was for design costs. So we aren't looking at full construction costs for that project yet, just design costs. And then also the San Ramon Olympic Pool and Aquatic Center at about $2.6 million. And then outside of funding those larger scale buildings, we are still looking at some smaller things in other facilities, such as flooring replacements. And there's a full list of those that were provided as attachments as to what we're looking for that popped up from the facility maintenance and renovation plans that also need to be addressed. So as I mentioned, in fiscal year 1920, we received the Certificate of Participation debt financing funding for use of some of our capital improvements. Resolution 2019-099 in October approved $24 million in funding to be utilized over a three-year period, and $6.6 million of that was for facility improvements and renovations. So two of which going to the buildings that we just recently mentioned for 2021, which would be the Doherty Station Community Center and the San Ramon Olympic Pool. So moving on to the Park Development Fund, the current strategy. So this year we're bringing forward $648,000 in park projects. There was if we went to this presentation last year, what we were presenting was that we were expecting to receive $1.7 million. That was actually expected in 1819 and then again was not received. So we expected to receive it in 1920 and that didn't happen either. So our update to that, well, basically what that resulted in is having to defer projects because that funding simply didn't come in. So we didn't have money to do that. So we really only looked at the very top priority of what needed to be done, and kind of waiting for those funds to come through. COVID obviously played a part in that, in the park developer fees not coming in, because those rely on development going on, and development kind of came to a standstill. So the good news is that currently the new expectation is that we are going to receive $1.04 million by the end of June. So if you look at the attachment that goes over the Park Development Fund, end of June to me seemed a little too iffy that we might not receive it by the end of the fiscal year. So I conservatively plugged in that money for next fiscal year, 21-22. It's probably likely we might not receive that by June 30th. So I put it, towards the beginning of next fiscal year just to see where that would put us overall. So, and the other good portion of the news is that there are additional developer fees that are going into the 5-year plan. Those are coming from Chang, City Walk, Faria Neighborhood, Morgan's, Masonry, Bishop Branch, and Cortese. And those total approximately $6.2 million over the full 5 years, which is really good news. So if received as expected, the park maintenance plan projects, priorities 1 through 3, so that's with not deferring anything further, are fully funded through the fiscal year 25-26. So some good news there. I also did want to bring forward that just a brief recap on the March 10th Parks Commission meeting where there was the recommendation to utilize additional funds coming from Prop 68, which we realize have not been received yet. But if received, we're looking at potentially $177,000 in grant funding. So the city's portion of that, which is about $45,000, will be brought forward. It's mentioned in the staff report briefly, but it is going to be brought forward with the CIP. It's currently listed as unfunded. So we're looking for direction on where the city's portion, that $44,000 is going to come from, but we have not received direction on that yet. So that's why you don't see it in the Park Development Fund attachment. It's not plugged in anywhere there because there's not been direction received that that's where it's going to be funded from. So this is the fun part, getting into the projects that are upcoming for 21-22. We're looking at CIP 925418 Forest Home Farms. There's about $228,000 in there to paint some outbuildings, the barn, granary, the fuel shed, and repair. The picture that you're seeing right now is the grotto. For our buildings, we're looking at $220,000 for HVAC duct cleaning and equipment replacement. So this one I wanted to bring kind of a detail out. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to schedule HVAC duct cleaning directly following or pretty close following a building renovation. So as you might imagine, the senior center, community center, as construction kind of those major renovations move through that building, it really didn't make sense to do any kind of duct cleaning prior to literally all the dust being kicked up. So we are making a plan to move through those sites, a couple of which will be done this year with this funding, and then the remaining of which will be done next year to get the ducts cleaned in those buildings. So next year it will be the library, City Hall, which is going through renovation right now, and the San Ramon Service Center. And then I think this year we did the senior center and the community center. We're also looking at a package unit for SROP and basic repairs. Things happen throughout the year. So I think we put $25,000 in there per year just for basic repairs for things in case they fail. For floor covering replacement, CIP 925432, this one is going to be split between the school district and the city. We're looking at the full replacement of the Iron Horse Gym flooring. And then for our roofing project, CIP 925433, this one is a basic project where we always put in $25,000 a year, again, to address any roof leaks that might come up during the rainy season. So that would be more of as needed funds. And for the San Ramon Olympic Pool, CIP 925479, that's about $395,000 from the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund. And we're looking at all of the following. So updating the pool deck lighting, some pump and filter elements for the 50 meter, tarp reel replacements, windscreens, the recirc pump and motor for the children's pool, and the chem shed. And that's renovation of the chem shed that's on site. For the interior amenities CIP 925515, approximately $225,000 from the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund. And this is going to look at the reconfiguration of the Doherty Valley Service Center, the office space there, citywide door hardware replacement and upgrades, and then the partition wall replacement at the San Ramon Service Center and the senior center. Let's see, wallpaper removal for the San Ramon Service Center, and then basic microwave replacements. Again, looking at replacing appliances in need, and then an updated AED at Forest Home Farms. For the citywide exterior painting and ceiling project 925532, from the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund, about $140,000, and that is for painting of the stucco at San Ramon Olympic Pool. The warehouse at the service center would be ceiling and a polystyrene coating for that building, as well as wood exterior painting for the admin building. For Doherty Valley Aquatic Center, CIP 925574, about $86,000 for replacement of the children's pool pumps, diving board replacements, again, tarp reel components, replacing the lane lines, and storage buildings. CIP 935404 is the centralized irrigation system upgrade. And we do this each year. We put in $30,000 each year for various park sites for the upgrade of the irrigation controllers. And that, again, would kind of fall into what we were talking about as far as water conservation and controlling the water systems there. CIP 955516, which $40,000 from Park Development Fund. This is looking at booster pump replacement at Arlington. Oops, sorry, I went by that too fast. At Arlington Park. Citywide park amenities. This is by far our biggest project funded by the Park Development Fund at $577,000. We're looking at some big. We couldn't fit all of the projects listed, but the big ones would be replacement of the bleachers at Athendowns, some concrete paving at Central Park, tennis court resurfacing or surfacing and lighting at Cal High, brick surfacing at Creekside Park, basketball court surfacing at Limerick. And then at various sites, we always look at replacement of aging barbecues, picnic tables, benches, drinking fountains, garbage cans. Fibar is the material that goes under the playground. So that is also a safety issue. We make sure that that's maintained at a certain height to ensure the safety. So shade structure improvements, as I mentioned, I think we developed this presentation before there was the mention of the possibility for Prop 68. But aside from that, we also are looking at future planning of shade structures. I think it's listed in years 3 through 5. We're looking at tackling at least 1 or 2 structures a year, even after this Prop 68 funding, if and when it comes through. And the sites are TBD currently. I know there's some discussions going on between our staff and Parks and Rec staff about the best locations for installation of new shade structures. So our next steps would be to bring the 21-22 projects forward as part of the CIP budget. We're going to present this to the Finance Committee on April 26th. The infrastructure maintenance fund update will go to the infrastructure maintenance fund portion will go to the infrastructure committee in May with a date TBD. And then the CIP budget presentation is set to go to council on May 11th with the proposed approval of the budget on May 25th. So with that, I can open it to, let me make sure I can stop my share. I can open it up to questions. And I also know there's several staff members in the audience as well, in case something comes up that I'm not technically savvy on.
Okay, do we have any questions that anyone has?
You may want to also go to public comment in case there are people who want to comment on this before you go into much.
Okay, before we go to the commissioners, all right. So then I will open the public comment. And Madam Secretary, do we have speakers?
We have 14 speakers in attendance and we do not have any public comment.
Very good. Then I will close public comment. And now I will go back to, if any of you commissioners have comments or questions, please raise your hand. And I've got you up here to see if you raise your hands. If not, I think you've done it. Oh, well, Commissioner Gorlick?
Is my hand not raised?
Well, it couldn't.
Yeah, I think 3 of us are hands raised.
Well,
Julia, Heidi, and Will.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes.
yes, you are.
Okay, I think I solved that problem. Okay, just a couple of questions. When we were talking about the debt financing and the $24 million, where is that being held prior to being allocated? That's one question.
I believe it's in its own account. There was a staff report that allocated it out to certain projects. So the money that is specific to those projects is currently sitting in the project account. So anything that you mentioned that went to a specific project is already sitting in that account.
Gotcha. So it's separated out and it's allocated for those projects. Okay, and then regarding the developer fees,
yes,
that are expected, you mentioned you're not sure when it's coming in. So is it just a question of timing and not if, or is it a question of if and then also timing?
So unfortunately, the topic of developer fees, we get our information from planning. They're our contact for all that information. So basically, before I present this report, we kind of get the latest and greatest updated information on what is expected. And then they provide us updates on, because they're our point of contact with the developers. So what's in the report is the latest and greatest and on what we do expect. And we are definitely expected to get the 1.04 million they're saying by the end of this fiscal year, but again, I conservatively plug that in for early next fiscal year just to be conservative.
Okay, so it's more of a if, it's more of a when it comes in rather than if it comes in.
Yeah, I mean, previously it's always seemed to be when it comes in, but then COVID hits, development slows down.
Yeah.
So there's all those factors.
Understood. So with the HVAC, are we doing only cleaning, or are we doing any somewhat Title 24 testing to make sure that, the efficiency and the rating is there as well.
If Sandy's in the audience, she might be able, she's our facilities program manager. She might be able to say exactly what they do on site. I know it isn't just cleaning because I've seen portions of the contract. They do have a detailed scope of work that they do on site, which I believe does include testing, running the system. It's not just.
Sure. Gotcha. Okay. That's good. And then,
Sandy has raised her hand, so I think we could bring her into the meeting. She sounds like she might want to answer more.
Andy's coming into the meeting. Hi, Sandy, you're in the meeting, but you're muted.
You're muted, yeah.
I'm sorry, my connection seems to be very slow this evening. I actually raised my hand before Jen had a chance to finish her statement, but she is correct. It is just simply cleaning for those facilities.
okay, so we don't do any efficiency testing at that time because there's no components that are being replaced. We just do the cleaning.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then with the park amenities, just fiber, no sand replacement? I'm just kidding.
Great, that's a trick question.
And then, I know the shade structures, we did suspend that allocation for a couple of years because of the budget, but it was always kind of on the agenda for having 2 locations and allocate the cost there. So it's good to hear that that's going to continue as we get the funding. So that was it. Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have Commissioner Kensington Lee, please.
Thank you. So I have a question and then I have a suggestion. So with the chair's permission, I'm just going to get all my stuff out there at once. But the question is with regard to the citywide park amenities for Cal High and the tennis court surfacing and lighting. We live in a community where we take great pride in maintaining our facilities really well, and we love that. And I have to preface this by saying I was a Cal High tennis player mom. So I'm saying that from that perspective, but also knowing that I have to, in my position as commissioner, look at our community as a whole, right? So my question to our facilities folks is this a end of useful life situation? The reason I ask before you answer that is I'm wondering, because we recently have had citizens come to us and say, we need more lighted tennis courts. And have we truly reached end of useful life on both the surfacing and the lighting? And is it at all conceivable, and I know you guys will tell us the real deal, but is it conceivable that we resurface the tennis courts and maybe put lights in at another court to increase that the player capacity? Just I'm curious about, have we reached true useful life on those things? I'm sure there's somebody in the queue who can answer me.
I think it would either be Sandy or Brent.
I'll bring in Brent right now. He has his hand raised.
Okay.
So Brent is coming in. Brent, you're muted.
Hey, Brent.
Good evening, Commission. Do you see me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so to answer your question first on the surfacing, yes, that will be definitely something we're doing in this next fiscal year. That is on the agenda. The lighting has been brought up. We are looking into, so 3 of the courts are lit and the other 3 are not. So to do the process right and to add lights to the other 3 courts, we would have to add the same lighting to the courts that have lights right now. So we are looking into it. It's going to be pretty costly to do that, as well as it being in the neighborhood. We'll have to get approval. So there's a few different hurdles we'll have to accomplish with that. But the surfacing is definitely planned for this next year.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, obviously, I know every commissioner I hear from, our priority is safety. And so I know that these items they speak to safety, which is important. I just also know that Kathy's really effective when citizens come with thoughts and ideas of keeping those in the back of her head, and that we keep those in mind when we set these priorities. So that's it. I just want us to keep that demand from our residents in the back of our minds as we set these priorities. So that's great. Thanks, Brent. And then the last thing on the CIP I wanted to ask about is the cricket pitch. I know in our packet, the conversion at an existing park, continues to be discussed, and you say as the scope and details transpire, then staff will add the project to the 5-year CIP and identify a funding source. I feel like in the context of the goals that frame our CIP priorities, I feel to some extent, all three really address giving a bit higher priority to the conversion. Number one, it certainly is addressed in our Parks Master Plan. Number two, it absolutely would increase functionality and enhance our recreational experience in our community. And number three, I feel like if we continue on this track of not at the expense of other programming, but creating this cricket hub that we take such pride in, and I feel like there's a great potential for generating revenue in our community, at our restaurants, at our hotels, with park usage related fees and so forth. So I actually would suggest that we somehow even if it's an unfunded CIP item, I suggest that we plug it in there. I feel like commissioner comments and resident comments have supported, at least getting it closer on the radar screen. So I would like to see it somehow move forward in the CIP consideration process, and perhaps in lieu of immediately identifying a funding source, we can keep it part of the discussion by plugging it in as an unfunded CIP potential project. So I'd love to hear what my fellow commissioners feel about that, but it sort of gives it the priority that I think that I've heard my fellow commissioners talk about, and that's certainly reflected in the Parks Master Plan and by a good number of residents. That was it.
Does anyone have a thought to that from staff? Kathy, didn't we discuss something about unfunded or not?
Yeah, I mean, that it's certainly feedback that's great, I think, to pass along in regards to the CIP as it's moving through its process. And it is definitely one of our top 10 master plan goals. And there is a lot of community support for it. And staff are definitely looking at it right now and trying to come up with how to move something like that forward.
And to that point, Kathy, I think, we staff provided us with that whole list of action items. This certainly could potentially be one of the action items listed on page 43 in our packet. So, whatever staff feels is an appropriate way to make it a significant part of the discussion as it goes by various committees in the council.
Thanks. We'll definitely take that feedback into consideration as we move forward.
Thank you. And Commissioner Osland?
Thank you, Jennifer, for your presentation. My question is a little bit different. I'm curious about our park development fund, and you mentioned that it's fixed and finite. I'm just curious, are we considering other possible funding sources to meet this deficit down the road? And then my other question was about the COP opportunities. I don't know if that's a one and done kind of thing that came up, or if that's something that there might also be additional funding opportunities that we can tap into for the future.
Okay, so for the Park Development Fund, it is finite, meaning that when development is done and developers aren't paying an in lieu of fee anymore, that fund sort of dries up. So my assumption is that what we would be looking at down the line is considering any kind of asset in a park as infrastructure. And then the discussion becomes, is that 1.5 million per year from the general funds is that going to stay the same with both parks and facilities kind of vying for that money each year? That would be my assumption, is that we bring forward all the items from the maintenance plans, and then we look at them rather than separately. We look at them together and prioritize them, but they will be competing for that money. Or there might be a discussion of, do we go back and look at another analysis and what that looks like, and how underfunded are we if now we need to bring in the park infrastructure to be covered by one fund.
Okay, thank you.
Maria is entering the meeting and she had her hand up.
COP would be Maria.
Good morning, commissioners. Good to see all of you. I just wanted to follow up on what Jen was just talking about. So the Park Development Fund, the intent of the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund was to be able to provide those additional funding needs for the Park Development Fund when that fund was not sufficient to fund the project. So it was very specific to lay the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund, not just for facilities, but anything else that anything related to facilities or infrastructures that fund would cover it. So if we are requesting the 1.5 million, if for some reason we have bigger needs than that, we would go back and request a higher amount. With regards to the COP opportunities, that happened in 2019. And that was, I don't want to say it was a one-time deal, but that is a one package, the 24 million. So it would be something that we could look into again, that the council could consider and come up with another funding source that would be allocated in that big of a chunk of money. But for now, this is a one-time and we have to spend it within a 3-year period.
Thank you, Maria. And thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
And then Dawn has his hand up.
You're muted, Carol. I think Don has his hand up.
I called on him, but I am muted. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chairperson Lopez-Lucy. Jennifer, nice presentation. I guess a question that I have is, and this is I guess a philosophical question. I did not see anywhere any money put aside for any planning for the renovation of Crow Canyon Gardens. And Crow Canyon Gardens was the one park that was identified as being in poor condition. And I'm looking at your priority 1 criteria, and I would think that that park would fall in that priority 1 as being needed to be renovated. And I understand that all of the issues haven't been resolved on it, but not having any money available to do anything on it just delays that park's renovation for another year.
Yeah, and maybe Kathy can chime in as well, but staff is aware of the Crow Canyon Garden situation. We are in discussions about that. We weren't ready to put in a dollar amount for funding. However, there was discussions of possibly using some of the, I believe the park amenities funding to look at maybe some design or some sort of fact finding for that site. And then what we would probably need to do is bring it forward as its own CIP. I think it's worthy of pulling it out of not just a park amenities, but making it really its own CIP project and looking at it as a full package. So there are plans to do that and bring forward funding for that.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know, Kathy, do you have anything to add on that one? Or?
Yeah, that was just kind of the update that I had given you previously, that right now there is some work being done to identify different possible ways of preserving a portion of the structure or none of the structure and the costs associated with it. That's what the city council asked for at their policy committee. So staff is working with some outside contractors to develop those costs. We'll go back to the policy committee, then we'll go back to city council. And I think at that point, we'll have a much better idea of cost in its entirety for Crow Canyon Gardens.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Well, I think, you've answered a lot of questions and it's very explicit here of everything. So I thank you, Jennifer, for a very nice presentation and giving us details that we really need, because in the back of our mind, we wonder, where all this money comes from and how it goes here and how it goes there. So thank you so much. We appreciate your efforts that you always do and give us good information. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, then we're going to 8.2, which is a review of the 2021 major accomplishments and 2021-2022 major action plans. And that will be presented by Jordan Foss, our administrative analyst. And Jordan?
And actually, I'm going to kind of kick this off because we're going to do a shared PowerPoint. But once a year, we take a moment to review the accomplishments from the current year and then the major action plans. So we've got a brief PowerPoint. I'm going to go over the first because we're pretty darn proud of some of the things we've accomplished this year. And then I'll hand it off to Jordan to take you through all of the financials. So let's just kind of jump in here. So next slide, Christy. Well, I guess there's one more. These are the significant accomplishments. So as you know, this is quite a challenging year for Parks and Community Services, and we accomplished quite a bit. So a lot of this has to do with COVID and how we had to switch our operations to actually provide services to the community. So some of the big things that we accomplished were to offer the Run San Ramon in a virtual format so that we could still have a safe activity. That was right at the very beginning. We offered a revised reservation-based lap swim program so that people could swim, and we actually served 32,000 participants during the pandemic. We were practically the only pool open in the Bay Area for quite some time. We had people coming from everywhere to lap swim. We transitioned the San Ramon Trails mobile app from the Easy to Hike platform to Outer Spatial platform, and that's because Easy to Hike went out of business, again, due to the pandemic, but we were able to provide continuous service to the community so they could get out into our open space and hike. We developed a virtual culture in the community event that featured community members sharing their culture through dance, music, and cooking. The videos are so fabulous. If you never got a chance to look at them, I think they're still actually accessible on our website. So it was a wonderful attribute I think we'll be able to use for years into the future. We created a virtual Forest Home Farm education program for third graders with videos from docents, worksheets, and additional resources to just kind of replicate the existing field trip program, but allow students to do that from their virtual classrooms. And this was huge also because our teachers, as we know, we're on Zoom all day, especially with those little ones. And so having someone else come in and be able to give them that experience really was special and has been enjoyed by many third grade classes to date. Next slide. We also implemented a new ticketing software, although we haven't been able to do any tickets yet, but we have Acesso, which is going to significantly improve customer experience when they purchase their tickets in the future. This is the same software that the Leisure Center uses. So as soon as we're completely back online, hopefully you'll all be able to buy some tickets with it. We completed our audiovisual upgrades at the San Ramon Community Center to include Bluetooth connectivity and allow live streaming of public meetings via the internet. So just in time for most needed technology. We created new rental opportunities for our outdoor fitness camps and religious ceremonies during the pandemic that adhered to the current health order stipulations. So lots of our fitness classes happened out in parks and church services in parks. So really happy that we were able to accommodate that. We modified programming and reallocated staff to provide the employee childcare program, which allowed essential employees to report to work while they could be secure and safe in the knowledge that their children could still handle the remote learning and while they worked, so they didn't have to stay home and try and do double duty. And we provided safe and socially distant holiday opportunities for the community, including that really popular scarecrow scavenger hunt that we are planning for again next year, home decorating contests, Zoom with Santa, and of course the holiday and remembrance trees in the City Hall Rotunda. Next slide. If that wasn't enough, we also modified programming from in-person classes to virtual formats to provide enrichment and fitness opportunities to the public during the stay-at-home order. Lots of seniors taking fitness classes. I love it when the staff send me little video clips of the whole class working out together. It's really fun. If you never took any of those virtual classes, it's a really enjoyable experience. We developed and implemented a virtual art and wind festival that included do-it-yourself activities and entertainment from past festivals, as well as a very popular drive-through kite kit pickup. And that, again, was right at the beginning of the pandemic last May. We coordinated weekly distribution of 30,000 plus senior nutrition meals. Again, those numbers are just astounding, by partnering with the various city departments and the county paratransit agencies to help with that delivery. So 30,000 meals delivered. We established a non-perishable food and good collection site at the Alcosta Senior and Community Center, and then redistributed the donated items to over 550 isolated seniors. That was the TP, bleach wipes, and non-perishable food. We established a COVID-19 senior hotline number in both English and Mandarin, and we have received and responded to over 2,200 calls this last year. And maybe one of the most important things that we might have done, and although it doesn't sound quite as grandiose as all the rest, we conducted wellness checks with over 500 seniors during the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. The staff divided up the phone numbers of everyone that had ever attended our meal program and got on the phone and called every single one of them and said, "Are you okay? And what can we do? And do you need help?" And I think that, even though everything else we did made a difference, I think that made a really significant difference to lots of those seniors. There were a few of them that so appreciated the call and actually asked that somebody give them a call back every day because they were scared, and our staff did. So lots of great things that were done by Parks and Community Services. Next slide. And, oh, I guess we had 3 more. So we also established the online San Ramon Neighbor Express volunteer program to assist seniors in need of basic services. We partnered with the San Ramon Historic Foundation and the East Bay Regional Park District to rehab and preserve the San Ramon Southern Pacific Railroad sign, where it is now temporarily displayed at Forest Home Farms. That's a big deal because that sign is really a piece of San Ramon's history. We're really proud of that. And we developed and implemented a drive-through senior resource fair, again, to help those seniors with a flu shot clinic so that we could provide seniors a safe way to get some different resources, information, and PPE. And it was one of the first times lots of those seniors actually got out and saw somebody else. So it was a really warm and inviting event. Next slide. So those were some of our big accomplishments. But now, as we look to the next year and we look to coming out of this pandemic and moving forward into some of the plans, let's go to the next slide and I can share with you what we're planning to do. So some of the things we're looking at this next year would be to develop and implement a trail cleanup program utilizing volunteers and local nonprofit groups to assist with trail maintenance and trail development. And on each of these, you'll notice we've listed the MPG, which is in other terms, the master plan goal, where that fits. And also the G4D is where it fits into the existing city council goals and objectives, although they're still in the process of updating those. So we did use the ones from the previous year. And then once they update them, then we'll update those numbers. We want to work in partnership with the Community Development Department to complete the San Ramon Walking District Master Plan, which helps create a long-term vision for pedestrian-oriented access and connectivity within the city core. We're going to be talking a little bit about that later in this meeting. We want to complete a review of the Boone House at Forest Home Farms and the surrounding gardens. In this project, we want to solicit community feedback. We want to develop a plan, a timeline, and then get down to identifying that potential funding sources so that we can move forward with that Boone House, which has been a long time structure at Forest Home Farms. It's the biggest one. It's the hardest one to deal with. And so we kind of want to take on figuring out how we're going to do that and creating a plan for that. Next slide. We would like to next year develop a new teen leadership and volunteerism program to develop leadership skills, provide volunteer hours, and showcase opportunities for future employment with the city. We saw a lot of teens step up in their Teens in Action on our website, and we want to harness some of that energy and try and kind of build upon it and improve our teen leadership programs. We want to revitalize the volunteer program at Crow Canyon Gardens. As Commissioner Birnbaum mentioned, Crow Canyon Gardens is a really important place in San Ramon. And so we want to use the expertise from our local master gardeners to create a plan to repair and restore the demonstration gardens. And that, of course, hits some of the master plan goals and the city council goals. We want to work with our community partners to research and develop a plan for providing shade and seating along the Iron Horse Trail. Another big goal that was in the master plan. So we want to start the groundwork of how we do that and figuring out a plan. And we want to develop a mountain bike program with led rides and classes to promote off-road cycling safety and cycling opportunities in San Ramon's open space, right? Got a lot of people walking in the open space. We want to start showing people how they can also use it for biking. Next slide. We would also like to kind of focus on public art again. That's gotten a little bit to the back burner. So we want to complete the design and fabrication of the San Ramon Library Public Art Project. And then we want to, if possible, get the installation of our Bronze Eagle Public Art Project at that Rancho San Ramon Park Phase 2. As you know, we want to utilize the Prop 68 per capita grant program to complete one of our master plan goals by installing shade structures to enhance existing amenities such as, walking loops and benches. So we want to make those parks better with those shade structures. We want to increase multicultural program offerings at the San Ramon Senior and Community Center to meet the needs of an aging and increasingly diverse community. And finally, we want to explore and develop a new nature camp in partnership with nature-based and environmental education organizations. So again, we can kind of start to make some headway on all those goals related to connection with nature that showed up in the master plan. I believe that's the end of my section. So let me hand this now off to Jordan and he can take you through the budget notes.
Good evening, Chair Lopez, Lucy, and Commissioners. Nice to be here tonight. And tonight I will be providing the fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 21-22 budget summary for you all. The summary was not brought to the Commission last year, so that's why we're providing a snapshot of what happened over the last two fiscal years. So when the 2021 budget was originally developed, last year in January and February of 2020, COVID hadn't yet impacted the city. So the budget contained all of our expenditures, all of our revenues that were anticipated if we were operating during a normal fiscal year. And the budget also included a proposed department reorganization to help support completion of the master plan goals. So that's why that number that you'll see is a little bit higher than the next slide, but the expenditures that we proposed originally were about 8.5 million. The revenue was about 4.6 million, and the general fund subsidy that you'll see is 3.8 million, which is a 54.7% cost recovery for the department. Next slide. So the final adopted budget, which was adopted on June 9, 2020, you'll notice that the expenditures, revenue, and subsidy all have changed. In March of 2020, the stay-at-home order went into effect, and the staff for the city had to reduce the budget where possible. So staff analyzed, determined areas that were best to reduce. And overall, between the proposed and adopted budget, staff was able to reduce expenditures roughly $700,000. Revenue was reduced approximately $100,000. And then below, you'll see the general fund subsidy of 3.3 million roughly, which is less than it was with the proposed budget, and the cost recovery actually went up. The adopted budget the budget that was adopted did not include any of our summer and fall events, such as the summer concert series, Rec Swim, 4th of July festivities, or the full presenting series. It only had a limited presenting series. And then actual funds that were being used were actually diverted to support our social services that Kathy had mentioned earlier, such as senior meals, childcare, and PPE collection. So this brings us to our current proposed budget, the 21-22 budget. The department budget that is being proposed is roughly $8.6 million, which is an increase of $805,000 or roughly 10% over our final adopted 2021 budget. You'll notice that primarily the increase is taking place in our full-time and part-time staffing. The part-time staffing accounts for about $59,000 of that $693,000. Again, temp staff increase is due primarily to the increase in minimum wage that we see each year. The other areas that we're seeing increases would be in the county library contract services, which is $19,000, an increase in the venue tech contract services, which is $26,000, We did re-add the summer concert series back into the budget, which was removed in the adopted 2021 budget. So that was an increase of $22,000. And the IS replacement charge, which is computers, printers, and dictated by our administrative services department, that was re-added as well for a total of $66,000. Next slide, please. So overall, staffing, full-time and part-time, continues to be the largest expense for our department. You'll notice that 78% of the total expenditures are staffing. Contract services make up 19% of our department expenditures. Materials and supplies make up 3%. And the general fund subsidy is at 49%. We are, we are projecting to bring in $4.4 million in revenue, made up of, again, service charges, program charges, contributions, rentals, and that will end up funding 51% of all of our proposed department expenditures. And for reference, I did add this table so you can see where the original proposed budget numbers were compared to obviously what our adopted 2021 numbers were, and then what we're proposing this year. And then if you'll notice, between the original proposed 2021 and our proposed 21-22, it's only an increase of about $100,000. And revenue is down from the original proposed to the current proposed budget. And that is mostly due to the lingering effects of COVID in Q1 and Q2. Staff does anticipate more of a return to normal operations come Q3 and Q4. And that's why you're still seeing a $4.4 million revenue. And thank you for your time. That's all I have. But if you have any questions, Kathy and I would be happy to answer them.
All right, questions or comments? Okay, I'm looking.
Did we want to offer public comment first?
I was just going to ask you that. Do we have, I know public comment, so do we have any speakers?
We have 9 in attendance and we do not have public comment right now.
Okay, thank you. So then I'm back to commissioners if you have comments or questions. Okay, I'm going up here. I'm Commissioner Don Beerbaum.
Well, Kathy and Jordan, thank you for your presentation. Kathy, I just have to say I am very, amazed at how you have managed your department through this very difficult time. What you guys did for the community, with your resources that you had and your commitment to doing the right thing is just, makes me proud to be part of San Ramon and proud to be a commissioner. And I just have to tell you, it starts at the top. Leadership, sets the tone, sets the direction. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much. We have great staff. We have a great city.
And I'd like to hear now from our student commissioner, Commissioner Ramish.
Thank you. First, I just really wanted to thank the entire Parks and Community Services staff for just pushing us through this entire year. Something that I was really excited about was Action Plan Item 4, which talked about the new teen leadership and volunteerism plan. I think that that's great. We've had a lot of interest, especially this year, for teens to get involved in their community. And it's just really exciting for me to see that the city wants to support that and encourage that. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Vice Chair Oslam.
Thank you, Chair Lopez Lucy. I just feel like we need to have an Academy Award ceremony or event for the Parks and Community Services Department and all the staff, and Kathy for your leadership. I mean, oh my gosh, really, this has just been an amazing year, and it's been so hard, and you always have a smile on your face, and the staff is always available and very pleasant. And just look at all these accomplishments. I mean, really, truly, I want to have a huge Academy Award that you all have on your desk for this year. It just amazing. Flexibility, ingenuity, creativity, everything. And, and we were leaders in our community within the Tri-Valley for how we handle this. So please know this does not go unnoticed. I also wanted to comment with Teen Commissioner Ramesh's comment about the Teen Council, the Teen Leadership Program that's being adopted and developed this year. I think that is awesome. Sitting as a liaison on the Teen Council, I see that there's a lot of interest in getting more opportunities to work with the city and to develop their leadership skills. So I just want to throw that out there. If you need any resources, I would love to be involved in that. So thank you very much for a great pivot this past year and for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Commissioner Roberts.
Thank you, Chair Lopez-Lucy. Yeah, thanks for the presentation, Kathy and Jordan, and special thanks to the entire Parks Department for these wonderful accomplishments, as my fellow commissioners stated, especially for the tremendous work around our senior community. I think this was extremely important during this unprecedented year that we had, and as we continue with this. But I also wanted to mention another accomplishment worth mentioning I didn't see on the list was for our youth and the youth camps and the summer programs during COVID-19. I think it's fantastic that no staff contracted COVID or campers. And the fact that out of 115 surveyed, you were able to get like a 4.86 rating. I just think that that's amazing. So, I guess I'll use the quote that the department used in their presentation back in September, I believe it was. When life gives you lemons, right? You turn around and make something of it. So, so thanks again for all the hard work that you all do.
Thank you very much. I will play this portion of the meeting for the staff so they can hear your kind words.
And we have Commissioner Heidesenton-Lee, please.
Thank you. I mean, ditto to everything everybody said about how wonderful our department and how successfully you guys have adapted. We know we love you. And what's nice about this is that some programming that you guys were creative enough to implement, like the scavenger hunt, you guys are savvy enough to see the success of it and to continue it in the future. So in certain ways, we're coming out in an even stronger place because I think a lot of these programs are really sustainable, and I love that. I do have a couple of questions. One is, I noticed that 2 of our action plan items have to do with mobilizing volunteers. One for Crow Canyon Gardens and one for the trail cleanup. Are we still going to utilize City Lights to recruit those volunteers and mobilize them?
Actually, we've started somewhat on some of these projects. And so yes, to some extent. So like for the Crow Canyon Gardens, those will be Crow Canyon or City Lights volunteers. But like in the cleanups, we found the trail dogs who will do actual trail building. They're a separate nonprofit organization. We'll partner with them. We have the Leave No Trace teen group, a separate group. So we'll partner with them. So I think we're looking at a broader approach to volunteerism and community groups, maybe even working with local Rotaries or whatever group wants to be partnered with us in order to accomplish some of those goals.
Yeah. I'm always hesitant from a programming perspective to be redundant, and reinvent the wheel. And I'm always eager to utilize a mechanism that works well for us, number one. So I know you have that in mind. The other thing, being a mom of a couple of recent high schoolers, those kids are, and our student commissioners can probably tell us this, like the teens are aching for volunteer opportunities, right? They got to get those CSF hours and all that stuff they need to do. And my experience checking out City Lights is there are not enough volunteer opportunities to service our teen community. So maybe there could be some overlap, and where it's appropriate, we just really look at ways to broaden City Lights and make it the one-stop shop for city volunteer opportunities. And so I get there are certain skill sets that are needed to do some of these volunteer activities. And that's where that broader scope comes in, I think is what you're saying. But that was one thing also. So if I understand correctly, our projected revenue for the 2021-22 budget is lower than the COVID reflected revenue. That's correct, right, Jordan? It went down a little bit. And you had,
That's
yeah,
correct.
and you had said it was because of the impact of COVID in Q1 and Q2, correct?
Correct.
I'm feeling a little Dominique Yancey here asking my questions.
Well,
Anyway.
I think just to be clear, what you're asking though, I think Jordan, is the money you see in that budget was what we thought when we did the budget a year ago. We thought that, and naively, I guess this is where my optimistic nature failed me. My optimistic nature said, oh, we'll be out of this in 3-4 months. We'll be fine in the fall. We'll be able to get back. So let's, we projected sort of like we would be back, and we just weren't. So
yeah,
as you know, we ended up with about a $3 million shortfall in our end game. That's what we anticipate. Although, we're getting better now because we're coming back on, but that's what we think we would end at. We were able to cut back $1 million on our expenditures. So a net loss of 2 million. So the number that was budgeted was not the end number. Does that answer your question somewhat?
Well, I was going to ask you, Kathy, it's like, it almost seems like maybe it was a lesson learned or a pendulum swinging to the other side, but it seems like we're moving forward, even in light of the recovery that we're hoping for and anticipating. We're sort of approaching it from a very conservative perspective. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I feel like that's important context for these numbers, that we understand that that's a conservative number, right? And that may be the right approach. Obviously, we are very fiscally responsible in San Ramon, and that's sort of a guiding premise for us. And so that's always served us well. So yeah, so those numbers on the surface seem a little odd in the light of recovery, right? And so I just wanted to get that clarification. And then finally, I noticed, Jordan, that you mentioned, and by the way, you're rocking it. You're totally like, it's amazing how much you've learned and how much you're doing now. But the increases, one of the increases was the county library services. And this might have a little impact on the CIP discussion as well, maybe not CIP actually, but just budget discussion. I would like sooner than later for us to get an update on library services and library usage, because we know we had to do a little cutting back because of county restraints and so forth. And so that triggered me thinking, particularly in the context of our future budgeting, let's look at how things are working out and who's using it, and if our configuration that we've got going on right now is serving us, and maybe we don't need to make any changes. So I'd love to see that on the agenda in the near future.
It definitely will be. In fact, the Library Advisory Committee was just looking at the data metrics that they look at in regards to, how many seats and how many hours of service. And so that will definitely be coming back, probably in the next 4 or 5 months, but we would like to see how it all goes and then adapt.
And the difference there too is because we don't have any money coming from the college anymore either. So that affected us tremendously on that one too. We had to take in more expenses.
Thank you. Thank
you all. Any others? You've all said my same thing. I've told Kathy personally, but it's just amazing that we've made a difference in the community. I think we can, as we said, we can be very proud of our parks and community services in San Ramon, and helping seniors that people really needed help, and the innovative ideas. And also, I think the Scarecrow was successful, but I think the trees were also another very successful event, because there was lots and lots of people that, wanted to get out and see them at nighttime and all. And it was fun doing them also, so if you participate, and hopefully we can encourage more foundations and people to get excited and, help and do them. So it was fun. I did have one question about when you see in the budget about donations. How do you count that? Like when the foundation pays for projects at the farm, and that of course the money goes to the city naturally. Does that count as a donation, or how does that work?
Yes, so anything received from the foundations goes into a revenue account. So we do track it as revenue, but then any corresponding expenses will also come out of our expense. So if it's a wash it. So for example, if the foundation is paying for a specific item to be
Yes.
renovated, then it's going to end up being a wash at the end of the day.
Okay, I figured that, but I just want to be certain on that. But I think that, like you said, like Commissioner Osland said, we need a party for the Parks and Recreation group to celebrate for what we've accomplished, not we, but for the staff and what you've done. So
Well, we may well plan a barbecue sometime in late summer or fall, and perhaps we can invite the commission to come with the staff. So that might be an enjoyable thing for us to do.
It would be, but thank you again, Kathy, and every person on our staff. We thank you tremendously.
Thank you.
Okay, we will next move on to 8.3, which is our 2021-2022 Teen Council Appointment Recommendations. And that will be presented by Kathy Hyman, our director.
Yes, so I know that you're all very familiar with this because you've all been working with it. So after a lengthy process again to screen the 62 applicants and applications that came in, and then interview 39 of those top candidates, it is recommended that the commission approve a recommendation to the city council for the appointment of 18 applicants, including 2 alternates, to serve on the teen council with terms expiring in July of 2022. And it's further recommended that the commission recommend the prioritization of a wait list for teen council in the event that one of the appointed members is unable to complete their term. The list of names recommended by the interview committee is in your packet, and I am looking for a motion to approve the recommendation and move it forward to the city council for consideration.
So moved.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion on the motion? I think I will give a little, I think for Heidi and Scott and myself, we found out that we kind of screened in the same manner, which we felt very comfortable submitting the names. And it's a task, but I think we felt that we did a good job. And I'm sure any comments from our people who interviewed. Ms. Osland, Commissioner Osland?
I was fortunate to be on the interview committee with Commissioner Birnbaum and Commissioner Dorlick. And this is the second time that I've had the opportunity to interview these wonderful teens in the city of San Ramon. I just can't tell you what a difficult decision it was for us. We had so much talent, so much leadership, such an intelligent, bright group of teens here in the city of San Ramon, and a distribution from all the different schools, and a distribution of a lot of the different grades too. Since I've had the opportunity to interview 2 years in a row, there was a little bit different theme as of last year. And I just want to share a few of my observations. In 2020, what I observed was that the students, this was at the beginning of our lockdown, and COVID had just entered into our world. And the students really missed seeing their friends in person and being involved in their activities, but they also welcomed kind of a lower pace of life, and because they were normally on the go, attending lessons, classes, sports, just a lot of different things were going on for them. And with COVID, it slowed everything down, and everyone was home and isolated. And so they were actually, what we picked up was that they were actually kind of enjoying having a little bit of extra rest and some sleep and sort of slowing down a little bit. That was last year. The interviews this year in 2021, the different theme that I noticed was that the students really missed being together. And so that there was really sort of a kind of a loneliness and some isolation, and a little bit of depression was kind of coming out in some of the conversations. So it was very different from the year previously. One of the questions that I was fortunate to be assigned to ask was, if you could change one thing for teens in San Ramon, what would it be and why? And I would often get a sort of a pause from the candidate to really have to think about that. And they would ask, do I have to just say one? And so, of course, we were open to hearing whatever they wanted to say, but there was a common theme in the answer to that question. And basically, it was about improving mental health and creating a positive mindset. There were a variety of different answers that related to those themes. Some said we need to address our isolation, our stress through stress management. We need to have more mental health resources. We need to stop focusing so much on grades and AP courses and what college you're going to go to, and spend more money, more energy on the journey, the experience of going to school, and reducing some of that academic pressure. And also what was stated was a desire to build a stronger sense of community for the teens in San Ramon, have a more world awareness outside of San Ramon and the Tri-Valley, and help them get back to school and transition back into the classroom, and create more love and appreciation for one another. So I thought that was really profound. I took a lot of notes when we were interviewing, and I wanted to share that with all of you. I also noticed that we had a lot of ambassadors apply, which to me says that the ambassador program is working. And I just also want to reiterate, it's really, really hard to choose the candidates that end up on the final list, because there is so much talent within our community. So I was very, very pleased to hear about our leadership development program for teens, because I think we need to really kind of meet some of these needs that they're interested in learning and growing into. I look forward to watching our chair, Janabi Thanamala, step into Student Commissioner Ramesh's shoes, and our Teen Council Chair, Ramesh, has done a fantastic job this year, and I don't want her to go unnoticed. She comes to our meetings prepared. As I serve as the liaison for the Teen Council, she's always prepared. She's always very spot on to keep the conversation going. And so she's done an excellent job. So thank you very much, Student Commissioner Ramesh. Awesome. So anyway, hard decision. And I think that what we have concluded was a very strong Teen Council for 2021-22.
Thank you. I know I have a couple of more speakers here, but when you were saying that, I think that Scott and Heidi and I felt the same, that we saw what you were seeing that was coming out in their essays and their things, that the mental health, the depression, and all that. And I'm certain that they'll reiterate and maybe further extend on that. But we saw the same thing when we were reading through. So, Commissioner Heidi Kensington Lee, please.
Okay. All right. I wanted to dovetail on what Commissioner Osland said a little bit, but I'm going to do a little in my day. Well, back in the day, Commissioner Dorlick will attest, there were times where we screened and interviewed 130. Do you remember this, Carol?
Yes.
130 kids. And that at that time, as well as now, I want everybody to understand, and if some of the kids who applied are looking, we are very fortunate to have a lot of superstars in our community. We just are. They high achievers, and part of that's good, and part of that's a challenge for things like mental health and things like that, right? But what I've always loved about this process is that we were not keying in on GPAs. We were looking at voices and diverse voices, and we love that. Like, we loved picking a group of people or a group of kids, teens, who brought different perspectives and who brought different views and experience life journeys to the table. And I do love the fact that we appreciate diversity on that group, and not only diverse voices, but the fact that they represent different, like you said, Commissioner Osland, I mean, more so than I've ever seen it, just through natural process of selection. We've got kids from all different schools of all different ages, and that really adds to the enrichment of the teen council. I'm sure that our student commissioner can attest to the value of diversity on that group. And so, you know, I just want, you know, kids who are looking at, it is a leadership program, but kids that are looking at applying, know that we look for diversity on that group, you know, in many different forms. But certainly for me, difference of experience and perspective is really critical to making it an effective body. So I'm really proud that that tradition has continued, and so it's a good thing.
Thank you. Commissioner Roberts?
Thanks. Yeah, I want to just reiterate what all my fellow commissioners had said. You know, and you know, to Commissioner Keniston Lee's point, you know, diversity and inclusion, in addition to, you know, the amazing accomplishments that these students have made, were all priorities for us when we were choosing which student. I mean, these students for the second year now have forced me to make pages and pages of notes with little stars and asterisks next to names to go back and decide, you know, who's gonna be the name that's submitted. So what I do want to say is thank you to the students for having the courage to step up and apply during such an unprecedented year of COVID. I mean, this was fantastic. So it was great to see that. But I also want to thank all my commissioners and the departments for putting in all that extra time so that we can continue to provide that space, that special place for kids to come together and learn how to solve problems as a group. I don't think there's anything more we can do that's as important as this for our kids. And to continue to do this is just great. And I'm really happy and sort of, you know, honored to be a part of that process. So thank you.
And we have Commissioner Elliott-Kopesic, please.
Thank you so much, Chair Lopez Lucy. I just want to briefly, I was not involved in the process, but as a parent of 3 teenagers, a senior, a freshman, and a middle schooler, representing Doherty Valley and Cal High. I'm also the Doherty Valley High School PTSA president, and I've been very active in the schools. And I think it is such a point of pride and pleasure to have this program in our community, and not simply to help the kids fill up their checklist resumes, because there is a lot of that in general in kids this day and age, back in my day, but really providing meaningful opportunities for community involvement and connection. These experiences will carry with them for years and years to come. And particularly this last year, once again, may I say, 3 teenagers in my house over the last year under COVID. I'm so grateful for this group of kids, outgoing and incoming, to have this opportunity to participate and have once again, repeating, meaningful connection. I also just want to take a moment to express such respect and appreciation for Student Commissioner Ramesh. We seem to run into each other several times a week in all different circumstances, and it's been a pleasure to watch her grow and develop, representing student voice, and I think also paving the way for others that follow. And I have known other teen council commissioners, but I really appreciate your specific leadership and the leadership of your group and those that have come before and will come after, because I think you really help blaze trails in participation. And I'm proud to say that Student Commissioner Ramesh serves on my PTSA board at Doherty Valley High School on the Inclusion and Diversity Committee, and we've really made an effort to include students. So I'm just very, very, though nothing to do with the interviews, not on that committee, but I'm so proud to be part of the Parks and Community Services Department and the City of San Ramon that so much value our students' role and voices. And I hope we can find more ways to do that. Thank you also, Kathy, for the staff and the leadership in doing so. It is a great place, I think, to grow up and become a leader.
Thank you. Commissioner Ramesh, we'd like to hear from you, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to take the time to thank all of the commissioners for the sheer amount of time that this application process probably took. I'm just reading through the names and there's 62 applicants, which is definitely a lot. And on behalf of the teen council, I really appreciate the amount of time and effort that you put into this process. All of the kind words and support that you have expressed, as a teen, I have felt it in this community, and also just being on the teen council and knowing that the city values youth voice enough to have a teen council. So I just wanted to take time to thank all of the commissioners here and the staff as well.
Well, thank you. And we're very proud of you for the work you do and that you represent us very well. We're very proud of that. So I think that we have a motion and we need to vote on it. So I think our secretary, would you please call the roll?
So we have a first was Commissioner Dorlick and a second was Commissioner Roberts. So Commissioner Dorlick?
Yes.
Commissioner Keniston Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Birnbaum?
Aye.
Commissioner Ellicott Pesic?
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts?
Aye.
Vice Chair Oslin?
Aye.
And Chair Lopez Lucy.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now we can send them on, the names, to the city council, and I'm sure they'll appreciate our recommendations. All right, so we're going to go on. Lots of paperwork here. Next one, and not as I lose my agenda, but I think it was, yes, here it is. Now we have our walking district summary, and that's presented by our director, Kathy.
Yeah, so just in brief, just to make sure that everybody's kind of on the page with what's been going on. The San Ramon Walking District, as you know, was a grassroots effort by our residents to create a more pedestrian-oriented space in San Ramon. The city itself expanded on that original effort to create a more walkable city and began to work towards a San Ramon Walking District master plan. And the kind of the rough goals of that walking district included creating a comfortable place for people to walk and bike, identifying walking and biking routes and loops, connecting to civic, recreation, and commercial destinations, enhancing wayfinding, better signage, and providing long-term vision for pedestrian-oriented access and connectivity. So to that end, there was stakeholder engagement for the walking district plan, began with a series of one-on-one interviews with some of the various stakeholders. Those were like the Bishop Ranch, because they're obviously very big, library, the grassroots community group that started the whole walking district. And then the first stakeholder charrette was held on March 2nd and was conducted via Zoom, of course, again, because of the pandemic, with co-facilitation from Design Workshop, the same group who, of course, did our master plan. And they did a fabulous job using mural boards kind of behind the scenes to capture information in real time, so very interactive. And then that was followed by a public workshop that was also held via Zoom on March 3rd. That also used really interactive live polling to gather more feedback from the community at large. And so the document that is in your packet kind of summarizes all that information that was gathered from the individual interviews through both of the charrettes, and kind of pulled it all together into one. So there are a lot of takeaways in there, but some of the big ones that they pulled out that were kind of across the board were that people really believe that this walking district should be enticing. It should be lively and interesting. You should have a fun time when you go there. It should have a variety and I can't even say this word, dynamism. And of course, the be all and end all is more shade. So following that first round of public engagement, 2 to 3 different alternatives will be developed. So design workshops taking everything that you see in there, and they're going to go come up with 2 or 3 different kind of designs and alternatives. And then those alternatives will combine all of that information, and we'll identify some sites, locations, places for art, trees, vegetation, gathering places, furnishings, lighting, all those kinds of landscape elements. And then each alternative will consider other factors, really, some of the really kind of crucial ones: access, connectivity, implementation strategy, how you might phase this in, how is that going to work, and also kind of tying into pedestrian and bicycle mobility, which is part of the bike master plan. So those alternatives that they're coming up with will be shared with the community in May for additional feedback. So we'll go back through the feedback process and a community process until they come up with the final walking district plan. And that's the plan that will then get formally approved and then adopted. This report has a lot of detail, and the charrette participants did a great job identifying some of the most important elements for design workshop to consider as they develop a walking district plan. But I also wanted to make sure that we didn't miss anything. So today I'm just looking for any feedback you have for design workshop from the charrettes, or anything that you feel was missing and needs to be added and considered as they develop this first round of potential plans. And so with that, I think you all have the information and have seen it. I just wanted to open it up and make sure we didn't miss anything else that wasn't already there that we should consider.
Okay, thank you. I have Commissioner Don Bourbon, please.
Yeah, Kathy, how is this tying in to what's going on in the Planning Commission as they talk about, the development at, Bishop Ranch 6, and how City Walk ties in? And I kind of see this going on as a group talking about what the City Walk should be, or the walking district ought to be. But this has to be tied into what Sunset's going to do and what Summerhill might do. They can't be separate, because they're going to we're going to end up with a plan saying we want to have all of this stuff, and the guys that are going to have an influence on what actually gets built may have a different plan.
Well, and that was kind of the key to having the stakeholder individual interviews and conversations going on. I think, at least as far as Sunset is concerned, they love the idea that we're working on this, and they are completely embracing it. And so, of course, they have a large and important voice, because they're going to build something. And so if we come up with a plan and we say, okay, these are the signage we want to use. So we don't want to have one sign in Central Park that looks one way, and then you go across the street and you have a sign that looks another way. So that's part of why having a master plan will help us, because then it helps connect all the entities who are building in this area to say, okay, well, you're building in this area, and here's our master plan for the walking district. So these are the kinds of signage that is our expectation in these areas. And so it does give us a bit of a cohesive vision. It's not perfect, when you're going to deal with a bunch of different areas, but it's definitely a cohesive vision. And both those properties are on board and we're part of the stakeholder conversation.
Okay.
And I just maybe answer a bit of that question, because when I attended the Planning Commission, they were presenting their plan for Summerhill Homes, and in their presentation, they did have the gentleman from Bishop Ranch, and that is part of their plan, that they will be going along and being part, so that everything will flow together and they'll work together, because that was their theme of part of their proposal, that they would follow the plan. And the gentleman from Bishop Ranch was there to also give help, and he's working very closely with him. So I think they're all working together, so it won't be a mismatch. So
I listened to that same meeting, and I didn't hear that. What I heard was, well, we need to talk about it. The layout of the Summerhill Homes project may not have the same amount of sidewalk or setback that will allow to have a similar look.
I
So
think-
that's what my concern is.
Well, I felt that the gentleman from Bishop Ranch was working there with them, so that I think that they'll have to go back and do some replanning.
Yeah, so for clarity, we need to stay a little bit off of this topic. You
Yeah.
will be coming to it at a future meeting.
Right.
I will say that they have not brought a formal proposal so there is no plan yet being proposed for that property, and you need to remember that. So they're just out there talking about ideas at this point.
Yeah, that was the mission. And so we also have Commissioner Kensington-Lee, please.
Yeah. So to some extent, I'm with Commissioner Birnbaum on this. It's been talked about, and Kathy, I'm not going to reference a specific project. I'm going to keep it higher level, but I'm hearing placations. I'm hearing generalities to Commissioner Birnbaum's point, good intentions, willingness to cooperate, that kind of thing, but not the concrete commitment and specifics necessarily that we all know we gravitate a little bit toward to ensure that it's done right. So, and we know there are good intentions here, so I don't mean to suggest otherwise. But when I read this, the things that came to my mind were, what can we do? Because we are Parks and Community Services. What can we do as a department as part of that process? Because we don't operate in a vacuum. Cooperating with planning to ensure that there is that consistent look and feel. That was one of the big ones for me. And also, how do we ensure that developers are going to pay for a good be a good contributor to pay for all of these, walking district amenities. So for example, one of the things I was going to ask you about, Kathy, is like you referenced the public art. Who are we envisioning? Does it depend on whose property it lies on? Because I do think there was some comments made by the developers of a couple different projects saying, well, of course, we'll work with you, but it was a little macro level and not really down to Commissioner Birnbaum's point, not really solidified. And maybe that's just a natural result of where we're at in the process. But I guess as a commissioner as part of the commission that provides guidance and direction, I would just say this is one that we want to keep a tight lid on. We want to keep tight reins on within the appropriateness of the process, right? I think it's important for us as a community to have that consistent look and feel. And I think it's important that we have a really solid understanding of if this walking path goes on a developer's property, that they're going to commit to, 3 shade structures or 3 shaded benches, that they're going to commit to, a certain quality of vegetation that we're used to in our community. And I know that, certain of our developers are known to have that standard and be very cooperative, and they have bought into that vision that we have for making our community walkable and bikeable. But I think that this is something we don't just let, go down the river, and we really are an active participant in that discussion, not just planning. And I imagine you would be, as you always are.
Commissioner Roberts.
So I just, I want to start off by saying, my family moved here in 1981, 40 years ago. And I can honestly say that, this may be one of the most exciting and important projects I've ever seen in our city. And to my fellow commissioners' points there, I think we really do need to pay attention to, what we're doing and what our participation is and can be, and making sure that what we're hearing from the community actually is reflected in what is actually going to be ultimately built. So I'm excited for that, though, because this again, like I said, this is really one of the most important projects I've ever seen, and it truly does have that ability. Well, all projects have the potential for building community, but this project is sort of that step up where it has that opportunity to really unite the entire city with a central interconnected walking district. So it's extremely exciting. I do want to say that, being on the walking district committee for the last few years, I think that just in looking at what was presented to us, And in terms of the online forums and the charrette, I think that I like the overall goals of the walking districts, particularly, I'll mention a few here: the creating a comfortable place for people to walk and bike, identifying walking and biking routes and loops, and I'll touch on that in a second, connecting to civic, recreation, and commercial destinations, and providing a long-term vision for pedestrian-oriented access and connectivity. So I really do think those are fantastic goals, and I think they reflect a strong vision for a walkable community. I also believe the feedback received in the charrette aligns well with the feedback we received over the last few years on the Walking District Committee, most of which came from hosting walking district tours with residents. So we did receive a lot of that feedback, and I think it does actually align with what we did get in that charrette. So I like the questions that were asked in the charrette, albeit questions designed to keep participants in the dotted lines, but good questions nonetheless. I think one of the most important questions asked that provoked sort of this out of the box thinking was in the opening comments, which was the question, when you think of the walking district, what comes to mind? And the two bullet points, right? A variety of interconnected experiences and multi-destination walking, something that is so interconnected that spontaneity is possible. Ability to window shop, stop for coffee, enjoy a park in a casual and unplanned way. I think these are if I were to sum up what we worked on in the last few years, that would be my summary. And I think it's so important that we ensure as a commission that that translates into what is actually going to be built. Other frequent requests, beautiful scenery, benches and shade, local treasures connected to those, like our, the fountain in Bishop Ranch, the lake, city center and Central Park, existing and future window shopping, as I mentioned, public art and music, as mentioned. But I think that all of these these public feedback priorities can be accomplished through interconnected walking loops. And I just have to reiterate that because, there's all kinds of, we've used the charrette maps to make certain areas, to mark certain areas and destinations. But the real question is how do we bring all that together and how do we accomplish what everyone is talking about? And I think that, most, if not all of these public feedback priorities can be accomplished through these loops. So, and I just want to keep making sure that we stay focused on that point. It's really what we set out to do when we started this walking district committee. And I was really excited and I think it was the March 2nd charrette, or no, not the March 2nd, it was the March 3rd public meeting. I think the first slide that was shown was the slide that we have been using in our walking district committee, which shows the actual walking loop that cuts through the various areas and connects to all the major treasures that I just talked about. And I hope that we continue to use those kinds of loops because what I'm seeing on the charrette maps are, again, it's a lot of, marking here and there. It's streets where obviously most people that have responded saying they want to stay away from the streets, right? They want this to be more walkable. So what I'm hoping to see, and I'm going to give a couple examples. One example would be obviously that the walking loop that we created with the Walking District Committee that I know that's floating around out there. But another fantastic example is the Alcosta Senior Center or the ASCC Walks program, which I'll talk about later in that update. But they use a Google Earth map to basically create these loops at the Alcosta Senior Center. And if you overlay all these loops, it's exactly what I think we've been looking for, which really kind of represents, out of the box, not in the dotted line, but these loops that will really connect and bring all these sort of these features together that everyone's talking about. I think I'm hoping that, that's just a part of the phase. And that's maybe in the next phase is that we start to see what the department has actually already created in the Alcosta Senior Center, which are these walking loops. And I think these more and more of these walking loops will help sort of gel, be the gel that sort of helps bring a lot of this together, I think, in future meetings. So again, I think I'm excited, but I'm also to my, fellow commissioners' points, I'm also, concerned at the same time to make sure that, we're all on the same page here, that and that, what we're hearing from the community is actually translated into what is actually going to be built. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
For now.
I do think Commissioner Roberts that, all this was feedback. So all the maps they have so far don't reflect anything that they're proposing. This was for them to gather information, and then they should bring 3 plans back for consideration. And so that's when I hopefully will see what you're looking for, but I'll definitely reflect what you've said. That's what I'm trying to do, is gather this to make sure that I pass this off to design workshops. If there's anything else that we really want to make sure they look at, that they're aware that it's a concern for you.
Commissioner Osland.
Thank you, Chair Lopez Lucy, and thank you, Kathy, for bringing this to our agenda tonight. And I just have a few comments, and then I have a couple questions. I think having a walking district within our community is a huge deal, and there are a lot of walkable communities around, but not a lot. And what it does, it brings a sense of vibrancy, it brings life, and it gives the city a personality, a charisma. Oakland has a walking district. San Francisco has various walking districts in neighborhoods. Boston, Bend, Oregon, Portland, Walnut Creek has their Creek Trail, and then Asheville, North Carolina. So I encourage all the commissioners to really do a little research on what a walking district is and what the different communities include in their walking districts. I think when you walk, you actually see a lot more than you would if you're on a bicycle or in a car. Obviously you would, but you're going to look at a lot more details, like architectural details. You're going to notice different pathways. You're going to notice foliage. You're going to want to find areas of interest that you're going to read about. Could be history plaques about our community. So there's a lot of opportunities here for us to really explore and see what other cities have done to create a walking district. I also participated in the grassroots efforts of the walking district with Scott, and we had a specific path that was identified, and Scott has alluded to that, and it started through Central Park and went over the Iron Horse Trail, went through Bishop Branch, through the Lake Cecile and Lake Anza, through the city center, and then ended up back at City Hall. So there was kind of like this movement. It's not necessarily restricted to that area, but it brought you in. It wasn't on the streets, on borders. And I think that that's what Scott was alluding to, that we want to bring people in. I think it's important to make sure that we keep bike pathways separate from where we walk, and make sure we have a fair amount of shade, seating, and create places of interest for people to learn and read and experience their community. One of the things that was in the report, I love this, the question that was proposed was, the walking district will be successful if it's community oriented, connected to neighborhoods and destinations, it's dynamic, green and vibrant, safe, and well publicized and planned out. And I think the last piece is what I'm kind of hearing is, this is such an important thing for our community here to have this. And I think that it really needs to be very well planned out and thought through. And I see that we're taking the steps to do that, but I want to make sure that we really do plan this appropriately. my few questions are, I'm just curious, who's driving this initiative? Is this planning? Is it the city of San Ramon? I'm not clear on actually who is leading this effort.
Well, it came out originally out of planning. So the city council are the ones who actually, if you want to get down to it, I think they're the ones who said, let's go ahead and allocate the funds for a walking district master plan. So it came from them to really come to planning, because planning was dealing primarily with Bishop Ranch and the planning of the streets. And if it was just in a park, then it would be solely a Parks and Community Services, but it's not. It really deals with planning, and then also how they would create the things that people have to do as they build. So I haven't got the correct word on that. But so at this point, we did split it because it does go through Central Park, and then it hits like the library and the civic areas. So it's a joint project now. So we have staff from Parks and Community Services and staff from planning working with Design Workshop, who's really the consultant. So they're the ones who are gathering the information, putting it in the plan, bringing it back, checking back. But it's the two different departments who are kind of shepherding the process through. So it's not really one or the other. And that's probably why you're like, whose project is it? It's shared.
And I see it's a goal of the city council as well. So I was curious what you perceive as the role of the Parks and Community Services Commission with the walking district.
It would be some feedback on it. And when the draft plans come around, I think this will probably go through Parks and Community Services Commission and the Planning Commission jointly. So you both have an opinion like you have on some other projects, and then it will go to City Council. So, and your opinions will be reflected. It does not mean that both units will necessarily agree. You're equal, and eventually your two different opinions will go to the City Council in that regard. But we'd like to get the plan to where in the perfect world, we find a plan that everybody likes, and then we can accomplish most of what even both groups see as important. I think that's Design Workshop's goal. So that is the basic goal.
Okay. And then the last question, thanks, Kathy. The last question I had was about what are thoughts about creating like a city green or like a town square, a city square that's a large grassy area that can be kind of a meeting area. I didn't really see much of that in any of the plans that we looked at. So was curious if that's still something that we're looking at outside of Central Park, but would be a part of this to bring people together.
Yeah, that's still in the plan. That's that park that is conceptual in the Bishop Ranch plan, is across from, on the other side of Camino Ramon at the corner, across from Fieldworks and across from the parking garage. That's about where it's located. And so there's a park that's conceptually designed there. And I think that's the thought process behind that one. But of course, we're a little ahead of planning for that at this point. So that's just a conceptual idea.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then curious when the focus groups will come back together. I unfortunately wasn't able to attend the charrette, and I was under the impression that there might be another charrette as well as another webinar for the community.
There will be once the plans are done. So if you have more feedback, absolutely let me know, even if it's offline from here, and I will pass anything along that you would like to the Design Workshop as they're coming up with these 3 different plans. But there will be more public workshops in May, maybe June, as we get those plans back so we can get feedback back on them.
Great. Thanks, Kathy. That's all I have.
Thank you. And Commissioner Dorlick?
Thank you. I just want to put a little historical perspective here. You know, this is really back to the future, because this is how communities used to be built and planned. It used to be walkable. It used to be an area where the community could gather, and there was connectivity there. That's how communities were formed prior to basically the interstate, highway system and the suburbanization of the country. While we're looking at 6 or 8 lane roads where it's difficult to walk as opposed to a walkable area. So this also is very much in alignment with the 10 principles of smart growth, being connectivity, walkable, districts and equity. So also, as a member of the Smart Growth Advisory Board for the National Association of Realtors, we have funds where we look at plans for communities, both, excuse me, not both, but rural, suburban, and urban, on how to make connectivity work. And sometimes it's just very small incremental steps. This is a very grandiose plan, but sometimes there's just very small incremental steps at a very low expense, but with some initiative that help communities do that. And one example was a community outside of St. Louis that had traditionally two very vibrant retail areas that weren't very vibrant anymore. And because there wasn't any way to connect them. So with a very small incremental grant, they were able to take an alleyway and create that as a community gathering place, which also connected the two retail areas. And they just blossomed. So while this is a great plan, sometimes it's those small incremental steps that are very helpful in generating this. And I think, as several commissioners pointed out, the walkable district, the walking district, and bringing connectivity together, but also with Bishop Ranch, the City Walk, that's really so much in alignment with all of what you're looking for, that's just a great catalyst that brought the concepts together, but also brought it into a little bit larger scope that allows it to move forward. So just wanted to bring that historical perspective into the view.
Okay, thank you. I think you have some ideas and suggestions to take back, Kathy, and I thank all of you for participating, and I think it's something we all look forward to, and I agree with all that you've said, that it'll bring us together, and hopefully it can be really something really nice. So if there's no further discussion, we will move on. And we have staff reports from the Recreation Program and Community Service Report. Does anyone have any comments on that report? Which would be your packet of 9.1. Okay. Oh, Commissioner Osland?
Yeah, I wanted to, again, just compliment the senior meals. Oh my gosh, this month, the senior meal distribution consisted of 3,465 meals, and we're up to 36,882 just for this past year. I mean, that's incredible. I also really loved reading about James Spielvogel and his letter that one of his clients sent to him for his kind of going, not really over and above, but just really for his customer service skills of really listening and helping the client, meet their needs. So that was really, really lovely to read. So thank you for including that in the report.
Absolutely. If any of you have met James,
yes,
he is stellar at providing customer service. So he's number one, and we're very proud of him for getting that letter too. It was a very nice letter.
It's really nice. That's it.
I know. Go
You're
ahead.
in the pictures. You're in the pictures of the cleanup.
Well, that's the next one. That's 9.2.
Oh, I jumped ahead.
I know the foundation, the Historic Foundation, also have written a letter to the city. That was a couple of years ago or something, because he was just fantastic with his service that he offers. And if you see him after you've worked with him all, he always knows you and is so friendly and everything. The other thing I would like to bring to Commissioner's attention is to do the Boone House survey as to what you would like to see in that, because it's not only the downstairs, but upstairs has lots and lots of rooms. So what are we going to do with it? How, we need some ideas, because that's planning for it now, because it'll cost a lot of money to do everything that we probably want to do there. So any comments? Okay, so then we will go then to 9.2, which is the maintenance and operations report. Any comments on that? Well, I will have a comment because I wanted to know where all my fellow commissioners were at the work party at the Crow Canyon Gardens. I didn't see any of you other than and I thought we had maybe, since we had such a emphasis on, you know, cleaning up this garden and making it so, I was disappointed when I didn't see any others out there. And it was fun because my husband and I worked for 2 hours and we shoveled that mulch as fast as we could fill up the wheelbarrows. And it was fun. And the people interacting with the youth that was there and the people that were there, someone gardenered, someone lived around there, and they were very emphatic that they want to see this cleaned up, and they was hoping that more people would come out. So there's a lot to be done there. I mean, we did make a little dent, but there's a lot to do. So next time I would encourage you, you don't have to work that hard, and you can come out and have fun, and you learn and talk to other people, you know, to see how they feel. Anything else? Okay, then we will go to the update on city council reports.
Okay, that's me.
That's you.
So 3 meetings that I attended. The March 23rd, they recognized National Library Week, which was April 4th through the 10th. Interestingly, San Ramon has the highest number of ebook checkouts in the county. So I think that's kind of a cool thing. We've always had a well-performing library, though. And then also there was a proclamation declaring March 2021 as Prescription Drug Abuse Awareness Month. And April 27th is the National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day. So you've never taken advantage of taking old prescriptions to San Ramon Police Department lobby or one of the drugstores, or Safeway, I was told, is participating. It's very convenient and a very safe thing to do. Also approved all of our various appointments at Arts Advisory, Library Advisory, and Senior in the Citizens Advisory Committee, passed 5-0. And then they also approved a resolution appropriating a certain amount of money from San Ramon housing funds. I'll keep this really brief, but for the purchase of and resale of an existing affordable housing unit. So the reason the city wants to do this is because it allows them to keep it a low income property. So it helps us meet our RENA numbers, our housing numbers for low income. And so it's a very interesting thing. And it comes out of the affordable housing fund that we have. So it's a strategy to increase our affordable housing numbers. So it's a very interesting approach. That was the other thing. And then also they of course had a resolution establishing the fees and charges for the various municipal services for 21 and 22 that we all sort of advise with regard to those that relate to parks and community services. And then the 27th, I attended the practically day long with Kathy was there too, city council workshop. Very interesting stuff. One of the topics they talked about was the San Ramon Pension Fund funding. There was a funding presentation. So if you ever want to learn about how we fund our pensions and our pension debt, we actually are one of the better funded agencies in terms of our pension. And then they discussed the 5-year budget forecast as well. We're looking at, one of the themes was looking forward to revenue growth and recovery. And then the American Rescue Plan Act, how that impacts us, and the fact that federal government funding for San Ramon will be about $14.3 million. And then there was a discussion of goals development. And then finally, I'm just giving you guys really high level here. The meeting, oh gosh, it was last night. The meeting last night, there was the proclamation declaring April 17th, this Saturday, Arbor Day. They're going to plant a tree. And it's also a cleanup day, right, Kathy? Over at Forest Home Farms. And then a declaration declaring April 19th through the 24th as Earth Day. Little factoid, I didn't realize this, the first Earth Day was 1970. I didn't realize that. It seems like it's such a modern concept to be environmentally conscientious, but it's been around a while. The other thing is that the update on our tree inventory, or as they call it, our city canopy, is we have 50,000 trees. The value, Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, I swear they said the value was $65 million. Was that right? Or maybe they said six. I apologize if I got that wrong, but it was a lot. It was our commitment to trees is so significant that we are a tree city, USA, right? We're a tree city, so we can take great pride in that. So I know Carol was talking about Workday and so forth, but they're going to plant that tree, a coast live oak, I believe, this Saturday at 9 a.m. at Forest Hope Farms. So if anybody wants to go and represent and celebrate trees, the role that trees play in our community, then the last thing actually, the big thing they talked about was a presentation on the Tri-Valley Legislative Framework for 2021. So the Tri-Valley Cities Coalition, it's a coalition of cities: San Ramon, the town of Danville, Livermore, Pleasanton, who am I missing? Dublin, thank you very much. They come together to advocate for legislation collectively. And so there's a document that actually talks about legislative priorities for our region. Obviously it gives us a stronger voice to join with our neighbors, help cities prepare letters to advocate for state and federal legislation. There's a value statement. There are specified focus areas. So it's very interesting stuff, but I love to see that sort of regional collaboration with our neighboring cities and towns to keep an eye on legislation that's going to impact us in the state and federally. So they gave a little presentation on that, and I think that's about it.
Thank you. Just lots of highlights for 3 meetings. Yes, that's a lot. Commissioner Don Bimbrom, you have a report on your committee?
Yes, the Open Space Committee met on Monday. We had a couple of items that we talked about. One, the most important one was really trying to begin to wrap our hands around the issue of how we account for open space as it relates to the long-term goal of the city's 6.5 acres per 1,000 residents. Keith gave a really good presentation. We talked about it. We've given Kathy some ideas, and we're going to continue the process. But eventually, my hope is that open space will have a metric that is included in the city's overall calculation of parklands for the residents. So that was an important discussion, it was. I believe it was strongly supported by all the members of the Open Space Committee that get included in our overall metrics for the residents. Then we also had a discussion about the annual report. Kathy has been working very hard on putting together the annual report for the Open Space Committee. And I think we finalized and all the tweaks on that. So that's moving forward. And then we had a discussion about hikes. So there's a series of hikes. I was trying to pull up the dates. Unfortunately, I can't find it really quickly. But we will have open space led hikes. There's one in May, there's one in June, and August and September, I believe.
May 22nd, June 12th, July 10th, and August 7th.
Okay, thank you. And they're all in the activity guide, and there will be, depending on how the health orders are, we will be adjusting the number of people that can sign up. Right now, it's, I think, limited to 14. But hopefully we'll be able to open that up. So we're trying to get the community back out into the open space and being led by members of the committee. So that's my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Roberts?
Thank you. So I'm reporting on the Senior Advisory Committee. A lot of the meeting this month was dedicated to electing new officers and committee liaisons. I was actually pleasantly surprised that more members actually came back. I was under the impression that only one of the members was returning. And that it was going to be a very sparse meeting, but it was actually pretty full. And even though the committee is still looking for to fill a seat or two, many of the members did come back. So the new vice chair, the new former vice chair, Molly Abreu, is now the new chair. And then the committee was asked to give feedback on a plan to create connected walking loops and walking program at the Alcasa Senior and Community Center, with the goal of connecting the whole area with designated walking routes, distance markers, and wayfinding signage, which staff has called the ASCC Hvacs, which stands for the Alcasa Senior and Community Center Hvacs. Essentially, this program is for seniors to utilize existing walking paths throughout the city's, the senior center property to encourage daily physical activity with the goal of getting seniors to walk at least 10 minutes a day, with hopes of increasing that over time. I think they mentioned that getting up to like 30 minutes a day. 3 existing looped walking paths at the SEC property were identified for this program. The Loops Trail, the Scenic Trail, and the Perimeter Trail, which were all attached in the report and showed, which I was talking about before with the walking district. They were these maps that showed, literally they were like Google Earth maps with sort of these drawings of where these loops occurred. And so, which is very similar to what we had created for the walking district walking loop. And which is what I commented on before, which I think is great because it shows a visual sort of idea of what they're trying to accomplish and where they're hoping people will walk and make these connections and actually see these loops in terms of what we're talking about. What I really like about this is that it encourages seniors to explore all the spaces surrounding the senior center and allows them to find a pathway that that's like, I guess, most comfortable for them on their own or with a potential future walking group and I guess that's kind of what's proposed out of all of this is hoping that sort of these walking groups can be created in the future when all this is moving forward. And then of course, simple path signage and directional information is all going to be required, way signage. But what's great is that there was really no fiscal impact. So it sounds like it's a great program. There was a lot of good feedback around this. I think everyone was obviously excited about the fact that this was happening. There was some other feedback about trying to connect the park sort of north of that or above that to the property. But that was sort of off topic and that might be a discussion for later. But I think in general, everyone was excited that this program is going forward. So that's it for me.
Commissioner Dorlick?
Yes, thank you. First I'd like to congratulate Commissioner Kensington Lee on her revelation that the ecological movement was way back in the distant Middle Ages of 1970, when there was just nothing to know about. I just wanted to point out that actually the modern contemporary environmental movement started in 1962 with the work by Rachel Carson, the seminal work Silent Spring. So just as a footnote, Heidi, as a resident of Washington, D.C. in 1970, all those many years ago, I actually attended the first Earth Day celebration. So
Awesome.
I wanted to put that in context for you.
Commissioner Dorlick, it would not be a fulfilling meeting for me unless you schooled me in some way. So check that off the list. Thank you so much.
Way back then. Anyway, the Arts Advisory Committee. The Arts Advisory Committee met, and there were two main topics. One was to begin reviewing the 5-year cultural plan. So just as the parks, just as other master plans are put into place, the Arts Advisory Committee puts in their vision for the next 5 years on how to work within the city and to promote the arts in all their forms. So that is in its early stages to take a look at the goals and objectives and programs over the next 5 years. And as part of that, there was also a discussion of creating a regularly scheduled, perhaps every 3 years or so, a arts summit, bringing together a variety of community components and also from outside of the San Ramon, city itself, to come together and discuss, art, primarily looking at it in the Tri-Valley community and perspective, and how we can collaborate and then communicate that collaboration out to the residents. There was a art summit. It was more than 5 years ago. It might have been about 10 years ago. Kathy, is that right? Was it that long ago?
It was. I remember we did it. I think it was probably 10 years.
Yeah, it was in the the community center in the fountain room. But so looking at doing that a little bit more regularly to have more collaboration and more feedback, or more of a feedback loop within the arts community and the city, facilities that support the arts. So I think we'll see more of that coming form, both within the cultural plan, but also separately to initiate an art summit coming up, probably, as we open more, because you really want to do that in person. So it'd be much more collaborative and personal and communicative. And so probably sometime next spring or maybe summer is, when the Arts Advisory Committee meeting group is looking at putting together the Art Summit. And that would conclude my report.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Commissioner Heidi Ellicott-Hessig.
I apologize. As I mentioned earlier, I'm traveling, and so I apologize for not being in the right time and place for all of this. And my travel was extended unexpectedly, so I do not have my library advisory committee notes on me. So I've asked Commissioner Osland to help back me up. And rather than me starting and extending this meeting further, it's 12:30 where I am, I'm gonna ask Commissioner Osland to help me out tonight. Thank you, and I apologize.
No, that's fine.
Absolutely. And Heidi, jump in, please. We welcome two new members and one alternate to the Library Advisory Committee. So that took place. And on the committee business, they approved the Story Walk new book for summer and fall. And Heidi, I'm not sure, do you remember? I believe it was a book about going back to school.
Yes, welcome. And that's where I'm blanking on the name of the book. Kathy, it looks like you remember the name of the book.
I don't remember the name of the book, but I remember the gist of it, because it was going to be a back to school story unless for some reason school didn't go back and then they had an alternate.
Right.
But actually, I think what we talked about is using it anyway, even if we don't go back, right?
The other committee business was an update on the 2014 performance standards for library service, and Brad presented that. And unfortunately, I don't really have any notes on that. Sorry, Brad. And also Brad reported out on the walking district charrette that Kathy shared with us as well. So the library advisory committee members could weigh in with their feedback just like we did. Then Dina Hollywood, who is the Senior Community Library Manager, gave a San Ramon Library update. She mentioned about reopening the library on April 26th, about the grab and go, new Wi-Fi hotspots, and that they're also receiving some racial equity classes and training. I believe that's all I have in my notes. Is there anything else?
I think that's about right. And we also, briefly talked about the, adaptation of the library in the COVID environment and the different options. And once again, very proud of that. I will say that I'm pretty sure my daughter has single-handedly made us the champion of ebook checkouts, because she is literally downloading about 5 a day for the last several weeks. It is insane, but I am so incredibly grateful, as my house is almost falling over with books, to have the opportunity. And what this, going along with what we talked about earlier, how Parks and Community Services has adapted in this COVID environment, and some of the things I'm sure we'll like to keep long term. So yeah, it was really great to hear from Dina and the group on the different ways we've adapted the grab and go, the drop off, the ebooks, et cetera. And it makes us very proud. I think we can take a lot of pride in our city and the way we've been able to adapt, or you all have been able to adapt and serve our community. So thank you for that. And thank you, Commissioner Osland, for help backing me up.
And I think Commissioner Osland, have your faces have moved around. So can you give your report?
Yes, and I'm going to dance with our student commissioner, Ramesh, around this, because I serve on the teen council. Right. And I'd like to give her the opportunity to give the reports.
Thank you. Commissioner Ramesh, yes.
At the last meeting, we basically are like wrapping up the year now and sort of getting ready to transition. Something that we are working on at the moment is a video project with the ambassadors to host a workshop. So usually we would host workshops at youth conferences in the area, but this year those conferences aren't happening. So we're moving them to a virtual platform. Another thing that we're working on is our partnership with Adapt, putting that to a virtual platform and sort of increasing awareness for substance abuse in the area. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Roberts, you had something to add?
Yes, I heard other commissioners mention this. I think Commissioner Outland said this, but I forgot to mention that in the senior advisory committee meeting, that Steve Cox, the recreational supervisor, did bring up the charrette, the discussion. So, I do want to mention that, and actually my comment to him that day was that, I was pleased to see that the ongoing feedback is going, and it's great to see that other committees are actually going to be weighing in on this. So, I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that.
Okay, thank you. My report would be the EDAC committee canceled their meeting, so I don't have a report from that because they didn't meet. The other one was the planning, where Summerhill Homes presented their proposal to the planning for 404 homes, which would be single row of homes, court homes, and townhomes. 2-car garages. They ranged from 1,900 square feet to 3,000 square feet. They have for 15% low, very low, low, and regular presentation. The planning was agreeable in their concept, except they have some concerns that the homes that are very close together, there is no green belt between any of them, and they're very close, and that they felt that that should be looked at. And the other thing was the 2-acre park that is near the street, plus the fact that there was so much discussion on the 2-acre park, and it isn't near any of the homes that are very close, so that they couldn't watch, their children, because they'd have to accompany them to the park. And so I know they mentioned that that will be coming to the commission, so I'm not going to reiterate on a lot of it. So it's a way that they have, good feedback from the planning, and we'll see what pursues. And like, again, they were asked about the walking district and gave suggestions for them. And so hopefully it will be a good plan. So we will be hearing from that later on, as Kathy said. So that is all that I have to say on that. And if anyone has any other items that you want to promote.
Chair
Senator-
Lopez Lucy, I wanted to say, because we always talk about, we put so much time into the teen council selection process and this and that, but I don't think Christy gets enough credit for all the legwork she does to get our packets to us. And for those of us who screen the applications, we each got a binder this thick that was very well organized, and Christy put that together for us. And she's kind of like that behind the scenes unsung hero, right, Kathy? And I've been in a similar position where I know all the work you have to do to get the job done and keep us on the straight and narrow. So thank you, Christy.
You're welcome. I wanted to give you just some light reading.
You give us plenty of reading, but you're so cooperative. And I know that you did send out a correction too, because like on mine with phone number was correct. So the last that she sent out is correct, in that some of the what do I want to say, working together with different people, different on some commissions. So there was a change there too. And she redid all of that. So you have a question?
Yeah, speaking of that, what do you want us to do with the interview binders?
Well, when you get a chance, if you want to just bring them back to the city hall is now open all the time.
Oh, okay.
You could just bring them back to there, or if you want me to pick them up, I'm happy to pick them up. But
Yeah, as long as the facility's open and you can go during regular business hours, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, because she's going to need to shred them. She'll need to shred all that contact information.
Yeah.
It's a good thing I already copied it all.
And the community centers are actually open as well, just for registration, so you can get into the SRCC lobby as well. So.
Okay, great. Yep, it's just hanging around the living room, so I figured I'd ask her where you want me to take it.
But back again with Christy, I hope that you all pay attention to this second ones that she sent out. Those are correct. So, and I thank you very much calling me early and being right on spot for everything. So I really thank you that too. And Kathy is very great at always taking your calls and answering your questions. I appreciate that too. But I thank all of you for the work that you've been doing, because looky here, it is 9:43 here. And so we started at 7. So we do hear that what work that we're doing. And I think we should be proud of the Park Commission. So thank you. And if there's no further business, the meeting is adjourned. Oh, yes.
Leah has her hand up.
I also wanted to thank Christy. She was on my notes here. It's your night because you deserve it. But I want to thank you for the new roster of our liaison roles. And if we also have a new, I don't know what you're referring to, Chair Lopez Lucy, where our phone number was incorrect.
She sent out a new phone. She sent out a list of the 2020, 2021, because that has our new commissioner on there.
I'm not sure if I have.
Well, what we changed was we removed the home number for Carol and just left her cell number. The
Right.
home number what actually goes to her husband. So we removed that off the roster. And that's what we did.
You still have
It was
a
the
home?
one that said updated, right? There were 2, and it's the
The one that
updated
says
one,
updated.
the second one.
Was that today? Because I don't recall getting that.
I can send it to you again. It went out yesterday.
Yesterday.
Okay. I probably just didn't see it. And I also, I guess my last, thank you, Christy, for all you do. We really appreciate you.
You guys are awesome.
My last question was, when can we maybe start getting back in person? Are there any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we are waiting for the city council. So you will start to meet in person as soon as the city council starts to meet in person. And that is based on still our state and county guidelines that we're following. And so they anticipate maybe June. That's what everyone thinks again. Could be sooner. So as soon as the city council comes back, then we'll be right behind them.
Okay, again, thank you. And if there's no further comments or businesses, the meeting is adjourned.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.